Okay, Emma, what's the last thing we did?
I think it was the Nuremberg trials that we last covered, where it's like the Nazis and other people
The
were, yeah.
Nuremberg trials.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right, so let's all right, so the Nuremberg trials are the trials of the Nazis, right? Where the US, the Soviet Union, England, and France are putting the Nazis on trial. Okay, so let's keep going here. All right, so big number, what is this? G?
I think it might be E.
Sure, we'll go with E. Oh, I can even count it right here. A, B, C, D, E. There we go. All right, so big number E is the Truman Doctrine. The Truman Doctrine. Now, Harry S. Truman is going to issue this policy statement, right, where he doesn't want to let the Soviet Union expand anywhere, right? He doesn't want to let them expand at all. This is going to get called containment. This is the word I want you to be able to use. I have a handful of different assignments that are on containment, and so this is where you are containing communism inside of the Soviet Union. You don't want the Soviet Union spreading out all over the place, and you don't want communism spreading out all over the place, because very, very quickly, very, very early, it looks like Stalin is not going to let these countries go in Eastern Europe. He's starting up communist countries. He's forcing them to have a communist government. He's forcing them to bow to his will. And they're really, really scared that he's going to start doing this in every country around the world. Okay. We already have communists fighting the civil war in China. We're having a communist uprising in Korea already. We're having a communist uprising in lots of places. And this is not great. So containment is going to come out of the mind of this guy here, George Kennan. George Kennan is like a political idea man thinker. He's a political thinker for Harry Truman, and he's going to basically convince everybody that communism is really big and bad and scary, and that communism is trying to spread everywhere. So they're going to try to contain this. If you picture a map of American bases around the world, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Oh, whoops, that was dumb. That was dumb. That's not what I wanted to do. Pull up. Let me see if I can find a good map for you real quick. All right. Yeah, can you guys see this on here? If you look at this map, right, this is where we have like our military bases, right? And the brown color on here is the most powerful of the bases, right? The bigger, larger material. This is the Soviet Union right here. And so America is going to start setting up bases all the way around, right? We're going to start containing the Soviet Union by ringing around the Soviet Union. This is why people always ask, why are we always fighting in the Middle East? Why are we always involved in the Middle East? One of the reasons we're involved in the Middle East is because we're trying to help contain the Soviet Union, right? The Soviet Union is going to try to spread down here to Korea and down here into China, down here into the Stans area like Afghanistan. They're going to try to spread down this way into Iran, this way into Turkey, and this way into Europe. And so the United States ends up um, making this whole network of bases around the world. Okay, you guys have questions about containment? Does this seem pretty straightforward? All right, what do you expect, Maddie? What would you expect the Soviet Union to do in response?
Um, I know fight back. Fight back seems like a bit of a straightforward answer, but I really do think that's what they do, or um, avoid the Middle East and do what America did, basically just go around, find another way.
So, um, so their fight back is kind of the answer, right? The problem is, can they really fight the U.S.?
Yes, maybe. I don't don't know.
Not really. There's a really, really big problem with fighting the US.
Bombs?
We've got nukes,
Oh.
right? We got nukes, and that's a big problem, right? The other big immediate problem is that they have to rebuild after the war, right? They got destroyed in the war. They won, but they won at the cost of like 19 cities, right? That they have to rebuild their entire country, right? So it's a real problem. They're going to spend most of this time trying to rebuild and get into this like rapid kind of rebuilding mode, right? And then what they're going to do is the Soviet Union's going to respond by supporting rebel groups in countries, right? You give those rebel groups guns, weapons, money, weapons, money, power, and then they overthrow the government. That's the Soviet way, usually. They're not going to invade a lot of countries. They're going to just give money, weapons, and power to people. Cool? I think we lost Maddie. You froze up. All right. We're having real internet problems today. Sam can't even participate. Maddie keeps freezing up. At least we have Emma.
Mm.
Emma, you are in my top 3 class participants today. You've made the top 3. All right, good. All right, so let's go to big number F. F is the Marshall Plan. So this is an American plan. So the United States recognizes that one of the big problems with Nazi Germany, one of the causes of Nazi Germany, was that Germany was so poor that it allowed extremists to rise up, right? That it was so poor that these extremists rose up, and then the extremists started, causing trouble. And so they want to rebuild Europe for 2 reasons. The first reason is they want to avoid extremism. They want to avoid the extremists from rising up. We don't want any new Nazi parties. We've already had enough Nazis. We don't want any more. America is going to create their long-lasting policy of being anti-Nazi. Okay, so no more Nazis, no more extremist parties. The other thing they want is they want to make Western Europe stable so that the Soviets can't take them over. They don't want the Soviets to give money and weapons to the rebels, right? If you have rebels, say it again, Matt?
So Russia is the Soviet Union, right?
Correct, yeah.
And then the USSR is like Germany and other countries.
So the USSR is the Soviet Union.
Oh, okay.
The USSR is the abbreviation for Soviet Union. Okay, it's the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, is what it stands for. Soviet Union is the USSR is the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics is the name. USSR is the abbreviation. Soviet Union is the nickname.
Okay.
Same country. And in the Soviet Union, Russia is the largest section of it.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So most of the government officials are Russians. Right, and they speak Russian. Does that clear it up for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of like United States of America is the name, USA is the abbreviation, America is the nickname. Same kind of a deal, right?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. It's good that you asked, because I'm sure a lot of people, I use the terms interchangeably, and I'm positive people mix it up. So positive. So smart to ask. Nicely done. Thanks. Okay. So the Marshall Plan, this is our F. It's the brainchild of General Marshall, General George Marshall. He's the Secretary of Defense. He was a general in the Army. He becomes the Secretary of Defense. And he's working for Truman. And he basically says to Truman, we have to do everything we can to rebuild Europe, or the Soviets are going to come in, right? The Soviets are going to give money, weapons, and power, and they're going to overthrow these governments. And these governments are going to collapse. Remember the destruction at the end of the war. We're dealing with all of these cities are destroyed. These entire countries are leveled, right? 10,000 bombs dropped on Germany, right? Like, we got a real problem here. So what the United States does is the United States basically just starts sending millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into Europe. And we just start paying for everything. We just start paying for construction companies to rebuild roads, to rebuild buildings, to clear out the rubble, to to rebuild hospitals, to rebuild schools. We just start paying for everything.
We're not actually like sending US dollars, but we're just like, if you do this, we will like back you up. Is that it?
No, we're actually sending money. Like
Oh,
we're sending actual money. Yeah, no, we're sending money, but we're also sending like construction companies, and we're sending aid. We're sending like machinery and food, and we're sending like concrete and steel and stuff like that. So
that's amazing.
part of it is we're sending supplies. Part of it is we're just giving them money, right? And so we'll give France, let's say France, we give France $100 million. France takes that $100 million, and then they give it to the workers who are rebuilding cities,
Oh, okay.
right? And
Yeah.
the whole point is that we want all those workers to have money because we want them to be able to spend the money, right? Because if
Yeah.
they spend the money at the grocery store, then the grocery store stays open. If the grocery store stays open, then the farm stays open. Farm stays open, then the delivery truck stays open, right? By giving money to that worker, you are keeping 4 or 5 people working,
Oh, okay.
right? That's the whole point, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
like, are they actually sending like boxes of money? I'm like, are they just?
Yeah, well, no, it's usually just like accounts, like government accounts. You're just transferring the money between the accounts, you
Okay.
know? Yeah. And in some cases the US just prints off money. It's our dollar. We
Hmm.
can print it off. It's our dollar. We can print it off what we
Yeah.
want to print it off, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of, if you think about this, oh shit, we're not recording. Damn it.
We are recording.
Oh, we are recording. Oh, and I just swore on the recording. Nicely done. All right, we are recording. Okay. The little recording image was off my screen, but then when I moved my cursor over it, it came back. Okay, we're cool. We're cool. All right. So if you think about this, right, have you guys been paying attention to the news? What is President Biden planning to do about COVID-19? What's his big COVID-19 plan? Have you heard it in the news, either of you?
Trying to get out. He's trying to get out as many like vaccines as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else? He also wants to reopen schools if it's safe.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you guys hear about his COVID relief bill that he's proposed?
oh, oh, I didn't hear that part.
Okay.
No.
So if you pay attention to the news, you'll hear one of his big plans is a COVID relief bill. It's a $1.9 billion bill, right? And that money is going to be, some of it will be just money into our pockets, right? He's going to give me $1,400, right? Some of it is going to be paying for unemployment. Some of it will be, giving the money to school districts around the country to, help deal with COVID stuff, and give it to city governments, and to give it to hospitals, and to give it to doctors, and to give it to factories building needles and building syringes and building and delivery companies that are delivering the vaccines around the country, you know what I mean? And
This is
so
kind of a weird thing, but I honestly, it's kind of been hard to grasp my head around how, say, like a euro or a US dollar loses or gains like value, because like we have the dollar now, and ever since we got the dollar, it just keeps losing value. So
well,
by printing money now,
so that's
I
a
don't know.
that's
Are
like
we high economy or
yeah, so let me what Biden's trying to do with the coronavirus bill, right? Just inject $1.9 trillion into the economy is basically what Marshall's trying to do to Europe, right?
okay, yeah.
You're trying to jumpstart the economy, right? It's like jumper cables. You're trying to spark it back up and jumpstart it and get it going again. And so you basically just have to dump a ton of money into the economy, and then people start spending it and start buying things, and you know what I mean. This is
Hey, you
a
can money.
this is what Biden's trying to do this with Corona too, with
Okay.
COVID-19, right? And this is something that President Trump did do some smaller bills last year, but they weren't big enough. And so the Biden bill is like 4 times as big as the Trump bills, and he's trying to jumpstart it. As far as
Yeah.
like as far as like money holding its value, Maddie, in a modern economy, money is only as valuable as everyone agrees that it is, right? And so if you have a Coke and I have a dollar, and you agree to give me your Coke when I give you my dollar, then we've agreed that the value of a dollar is one Coke,
Okay. Cool.
right?
Just like
The
sometimes
value,
there's a thing that I
yeah.
can't wrap around.
So they figure this out a lot of times based on how much purchasing power dollars have on like all sorts of different stuff, right? Like a
Yeah.
dollar will buy you this much sugar and this much Coke and this much gasoline and this much, property in New York and this much, electricity and this much, whatever, Pokemon cards or something, right?
So why is the dollar less valuable than it was in say like 1960? In
So,
1960 you could newspaper for like a dime. Now you can't get anything with a dime.
right. So that's called inflation. It's called inflation. Inflation is where prices continue to rise. And so the value of the dollar continues to drop. The US government wants inflation. They manage inflation. In fact, ideally, we want our inflation. Our money, our inflation rises at usually about 0.8% a year, like 0.8% a year, right? This means that your paycheck is getting 0.8% less valuable every year, right?
Ooh.
Which is why when you're working, you should be getting raises. It's what they call a cost of living raise, right? Um,
Yeah.
you should be getting those raises. Doesn't always happen, but you should be doing that. The reason why they do that is because they want, it makes it so that the dollar can be bought and sold on international markets. And so countries can buy bonds in the government and buy dollars from the US government. And they use those bonds. A bond is like stock, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, you buy like a stock in Walmart, right? When we're saying it's the US government, it's not a stock, it's a bond, right? So it's a bond in the government. And you buy that bond, and that bond holds value in it. It increases value over time. So if I buy it for $100 and then I cash it in 10 years, then it'll be worth $110 or 100, whatever.
Yeah. Say I bought one now, it's $10. Does it just keep increasing? Or does that still depend on like the value of the dollar?
So it increases based on the percentage it grows, right? So it has a percentage attached to it that's growing, right? And then you buy and sell it. You can buy and sell it in like euros or yen or something, or whatever. You can use pesos or something if you want to, right?
And that would be
But the problem with a lot of those other, anyway, they want the inflation to work because the inflation promotes economic growth in the system.
okay.
Okay. Inflation makes it easier for businesses and for other countries and stuff to get loans and get capital, get money that they can use to then build things. It makes it easier for them to do that. That's why they want inflation. Inflation means it helps to perpetuate that the government is always growing, that the
Okay.
economy is always growing, right? If you have deflation, so deflation is where the value of the dollar is going up, and that's because the prices are dropping, right? You don't want
Okay.
that. You don't want that because if you have that, then no one in the world can afford to buy your stuff, right? We want to keep it so that everyone around the world can buy our stuff, right? We want Mexicans to buy our iPhones, right? We make iPhones, we sell them in Mexico, Mexico buys them, we get a portion of that profit. We want that,
Yeah,
right?
like a million won is actually like 100 US dollars.
Something
So
like
like
that.
$10. So it's like
Yeah.
oh that yeah. The
Yeah.
equivalent is just so crazy to think about.
Yeah. When I was in Nepal 2 years ago, and like I bought a soda in Nepal, and it cost me like 1100 rupees, right? And so I'm giving like $1,000 bill for a Coke, you know.
Ah,
Yeah. Um. Anyway, we want all of this is an investment. Okay. This is the way you have to think about government debt. The way you have to think about government debt in the modern day. A lot of people think about debt and they get really freaked out about it, right? But the government debt is an investment. We are investing in this case, France, right? We want France to be stable, we want it to be wealthy, and we want them to buy our stuff, right? Once France is stable and wealthy, they'll buy our stuff. They'll buy our movies and our computer programs and our video games and our iPhones and our, Levi's and our Big Macs and whatever else we buy. You know what I mean? They'll buy our stuff. We want them to buy that stuff, right? A poor France doesn't help us. And so we invest, I don't know what the actual number is, but let's say we invest $10 billion in France, right? We are investing $10 billion in France because we know that a healthy, wealthy France is going to bring us $20 billion in purchases in the future. See what I'm saying? So every dollar we put into France will come back to us in $2 worth of business.
Yeah, so eventually it will come back. Maybe not right away, right?
Yeah, but the only way that we can give a loan like that is the only way that we can make this investment is through inflation, because we have to print more money, which means we have to allow our dollars to rise. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? And we do this all the time, right? The COVID-19 bill that Biden has proposed is exactly the same kind of thing, right? He's counting on the fact that by putting $1.9 billion into the US economy, we're going to get back more than $1.9 billion, right? He's counting that he thinks that putting that $2 billion in will give us back $10 billion in business, right? And that's a good deal, right? I mean, that's like 5 times back on your money.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like getting 10% back when you buy something for like $2.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the idea, and that's what they're planning on doing. So that's what Biden is planning on doing. That's what Trump did do on a smaller scale last year, or tried to do. He didn't succeed, but he tried it. It was too small, right? And that's what the US is doing with the Marshall Plan. Is trying to jumpstart this Western economy. Cool? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We actually give it as a gift. We don't, in the case of the Marshall Plan, you could put this down in the notes, it's a gift. We actually don't ask Europe to pay it back because we know they can't really pay it back. If we're going to require them to give us payments, they're never going to succeed, right? And so we want them to just grow. And we know that if they just grow, that they will buy our stuff in the future, right? They'll spend their money. They will fly to New York for weekends and they'll buy a lot of stuff. Like we know that that they'll be good financial partners. And so we look at it as an investment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also, even if that didn't make economic sense, we have this looming, threatening Soviet Union right next door too. Right. Exactly. And so everyone is really scared of the Soviets and they know that this is a good investment. We do the same thing in Japan. We invest in Japan and we rebuild Japan really, really well. But we don't have enough money to rebuild China. And also China looks like China's a lot sketchier. China's way bigger. It doesn't have a very good economy and China's already in a civil war anyway. And so we don't invest China. And so China becomes communist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is their economy so bad? Is it bad today?
Today it's pretty good. Today it's pretty dynamic, right?
Their areas are very good.
Yeah. It's pretty dynamic today. All right. I think we're good. Do we stop here? We can stop here. This is good.
Okay.
Yeah. This is good. NATO, we'll do it next time. It's fine.
NATO.
All right. NATO, then we'll do it next time. All right. Did you guys watch the inauguration?
I listened to it. It was in the other room. I wasn't really watching it all the way.
Yeah. In US, yeah, Emma, did you watch it?
Oh, I didn't watch it. I know my dad did though, and he said it was cool.
Yeah.
I could hear it in the other room. I could hear that it was cool.
we watched it in class. So my US history class was right as the inauguration was going. So we watched it in class. We played inauguration bingo, and I had little bingo cards, you know. So yeah. So he said, "Sea to shining sea," so you get to mark it on your bingo card. And he said, you know, "Reach across the aisle," and you mark it on your bingo card and stuff. It was pretty fun, pretty cool.
He raised his hand, mark it on the bingo card.
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of stuff on there. It was pretty
The
good.
US flag, mark it on the bingo card.
It was pretty good.